Right, people. So we have already discussed the different types of tidal volumes. The different types of volumes that we have: the tidal volume, the inspiratory volume, the expiratory volume, and at length we have already discussed what are the pulmonary capacities, the vital capacity, the lung capacity, and so on and so forth. So we are done with almost all those aspects of respiration. So we will now move on to actual respiration that is taking place. Okay. So the exchange of gases basically is respiration. That is, O2 rich air, the oxygen rich air reaches the alveoli, and that is where the exchange starts. So we know the alveolar sacs are at the end of the bronchial tubes after the entire branching has happened, primary to secondary and secondary to tertiary, and finally the alveoli sacs are there. So there along with the blood capillaries or blood vessels, the exchange takes place. So the blood which is less in oxygen content from the heart is pumped through the pulmonary artery into the lungs, and this blood flows through the capillaries, and these capillaries are passing through the alveolar sacs where the exchange of the gases takes place. Okay, so exchange of gases is when oxygen rich air reaches the alveoli, and that is where this is basically the site of exchange of gases. So alveoli is the site of exchange of gases within our body. Okay, so there are two types of, or rather more types, but we'll just discuss. So the first type of exchange is known as the pulmonary gaseous exchange. Now what exactly is this? So the gaseous exchange that takes place between air and blood vessels is known as pulmonary gaseous exchange, or we can say the alveoli and the blood vessels. So the blood vessels are just touching with the alveoli, and that's where the exchange of gases takes place. So this is also known as external respiration. This is also known as external respiration. Okay, the second type of exchange is tissue level exchange. Now what do we actually mean by tissue level exchange? So there is something called as internal respiration. Internal respiration basically is different from external respiration. We will understand that how the cells get involved and all, but the respiration which actually takes place, or the exchange of gases that takes place between the alveoli and the blood vessels, that is known as the external respiration. Now one thing that we need to understand before we go ahead is partial pressure. Okay, so partial pressure is something that we have already studied in physics and all, and some part in chemistry as well. So partial pressure is basically, so if we have a mixture of gases, all the individual components of gases will have their own pressures, and that is called the partial pressure. So if we have a mixture of, let's say, gas A, gas B and gas C, all of these individual gases will exert their own pressures, and that is known as the partial pressure. So the total pressure of the gas will be partial pressure of A plus partial pressure of B plus partial pressure of C, and so on and so forth. There is a law in chemistry which is basically Danton's law of partial pressures. Okay, so we don't have to go deep into it. All we need to understand is, by looking at the partial pressure composition of a particular mixture of gases, we can identify a lot of things, what has decreased and what has increased. Okay, so this is basically, let's say, the alveolar sac. This is, let's say, the alveolar sac. Now we have inhaled air which is coming in, and which is a mixture of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So the air which is inhaled, even before it reaches the alveolar sac, or rather our lungs, okay, the partial pressure of that air is approximately 159 millimeter of mercury, so we are just going to talk about the things which are involved in exchange, that is carbon dioxide and oxygen. Nitrogen of course has nothing to do here, okay, although the content of nitrogen is high, but it has got nothing to do with our absorption. So exchange of gases, whenever we are trying to understand, we will only understand it in terms of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So the oxygen and carbon dioxide partial pressures of air that is inhaled in, even before it reaches the alveolar sac, so the oxygen content is, or rather the partial pressure of oxygen is 159 millimeter of Hg, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 0.3 millimeter Hg. Now when it reaches the alveolar sac, now try and understand this. See, we have learnt about the anatomical dead space, which means that along with the tidal volume of 350 milliliters, we have a dead space volume of 150 milliliters, which is already there, present in the entire bronchial intercom, irrespective of whether we use it or not. So at all times this amount of air will already be present. Plus we have already learned that there is a residual volume and there is an expiratory reserve volume, which is always going to be present irrespective of how we are breathing. So we can say that about 3000 milliliter of air is already present in the lungs under all circumstances, and this is, so air when we inspire in reaches the lungs, get mixed with it. So what happens is, when we are inhaling air, this gets mixed with this volume of air which is already present in the lungs, the residual volume plus the expiratory reserve volume. So what will happen now? Obviously the air which is already present will have a content or will have a partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide in it already, and the air which is coming in, that will have its own partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide. So both these will get mixed, and the percentage, or rather the partial pressures, will change. So what will happen to the partial pressure? The partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolar sac from 159 millimeter of Hg, it actually reduces to 104 millimeter of Hg. Why? Because generally the air which is present in our lungs already has a higher concentration of carbon dioxide. We can call it foul air as well. Okay, so it has a higher percentage of carbon dioxide. So obviously if you see, the partial pressure of oxygen reduces significantly once the inspired air reaches the alveolar sac, and simultaneously if you look at the partial pressure of carbon dioxide, it increases significantly. So from a 0.3 millimeter of Hg, this actually increases to 40 millimeter of Hg. Okay, so if we look into the concentration, so the inspired air will have a percentage. So let's say the percentage of oxygen in inspired air is approximately 20.95%, which is basically the percentage of oxygen in air. And if you look, the alveolar air has a percentage of 13.8%. So significant drop of approximately 7 to 8%, and that happens because simultaneously the content of carbon dioxide increases. Now if you look into the carbon dioxide percentage in the inspired air, it is approximately 0.04%, but look at the concentration of carbon dioxide in the alveolar air, it is approximately 5.5%. The percentage of nitrogen in inspired air is 76.0%, whereas in the alveolar air it is 80.7%. Now we don't exhale out nitrogen. The reason why it increases is because this alveolar air is getting lesser and lesser in terms of carbon dioxide. So that's the reason the nitrogen content approximately increases. So if you see this significant drop, this is just not compensated with the increase in percentage of carbon dioxide, this is also compensated with the increase in percentage of nitrogen. So obviously if the percentage of oxygen drops, then the percentage of the other gases will increase. So carbon dioxide definitely increases, and along with it simultaneously the percentage of nitrogen increases. Okay, so here we are trying to understand what are the partial pressures and how they get impacted, and what is the difference between the inhaled air and the alveolar air which is already present. So during inhalation, the inhaled air gets mixed with the alveolar air which is already present, and this alters both the percentage composition and the partial pressures of the air. Okay. Okay, so now we will consider the exchange of gases along the alveolar surface. So this is basically the main site where the exchange of gases takes place. So exchange along the alveolar surface, the inspired air, which is basically the inhaled air, inside the alveoli is very close contact with the blood. Why is in close contact with the blood? Through capillaries, because it's a very thin membrane between the alveolar sac and the blood capillaries. the inspired air, the inhaled air inside the alveoli is in very close contact with the blood. It is because the alveolar wall is very thin and is richly supplied with blood capillaries, so very vascular. Okay, we can say that it is highly vascular, richly supplied with blood capillaries. So the exchange of gases, between alveolar sac and blood occurs through a thin diffusion membrane. So it's a very thin diffusion membrane, and we call this as respiratory membrane, and this basically consists of 3 layers. So this respiratory membrane is basically made up of 3 layers. One, the thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, which is basically the alveolar membrane. It is basically the thin squamous epithelium. There is then a basement membrane, and there is endothelium of blood capillaries. So these are the 3 membranes through which the exchange of gases takes place. So together all these 3 layers form the respiratory membrane, and although it is 3 layers, this thickness is very less than 1 millimeter in thickness. So the alveolar air and the capillary blood are primarily separated by only 2 cellular layers, and the distance between air and blood is only to a tune of 0.5 to 1.5 micrometers. Okay, so the exchange takes place between the alveoli and the blood capillaries because the membrane in between is very thin. So the gases will have to go in and out through a membrane which is just 0.5 to 1.5 micrometers thick. This is hardly any thickness. Okay, so this is a very thin membrane called the respiratory membrane, although it is composed of 3 layers, but the actual thickness of the membrane is very less, due to which a very comfortable exchange of gases between the alveoli and the blood capillaries takes place. Okay. Okay, so we will now talk about the exchange of gases that takes place. We have already seen that there are 3 membranes. We will look at the diagrammatic representation of the alveolar sac and how the exchange of gases takes place. Okay, so this is basically the alveolar sac which is present here, and let's say this is a capillary. Okay, so this is the capillary. So if you look into it, there is a layer of squamous epithelium. Okay, we have already discussed. So this is basically the squamous epithelium of alveoli, and there is a basement membrane. So along with the squamous epithelium, there is a basement membrane. This is basically the basement membrane of alveoli. Then between the alveoli and the blood capillary, there is an interstitial space. It doesn't matter actually. So this is basically an interstitial space that is there between the alveolar sac and the blood capillary. Then we have the endothelium of capillary. So this layer of cells is basically the endothelium of the capillary. Okay, inside the capillary, blood flows, and blood has RBCs in it. So from the RBCs, obviously from the blood, the carbon dioxide goes into the alveolar sac and the oxygen enters the RBCs. We know that in blood sorry, the hemoglobin pigment is the carrier of RBCs. Okay, so the structure of the alveolus and the capillary, this is basically the structure of the alveolus and the capillary. Now what is the diffusing capacity? Now we have to understand diffusing capacity basically depends upon the solubility of a gas. So diffusing capacity is basically the volume of gas that diffuses through the respiratory membrane per minute for a pressure difference of 1 millimeter of Hg. So diffusing capacity is the volume of gas that diffuses through the respiratory membrane, whether it is oxygen or whether it is carbon dioxide or whether it is nitrogen. The volume of gas that diffuses through the respiratory membrane, whether it goes from the blood capillaries to the alveoli or from the alveoli to the blood capillaries, per minute, and this is applicable to a pressure difference of 1 millimeter of Hg. So this will be applicable to a pressure difference of 1 millimeter of Hg. So diffusing capacity also depends upon the solubility of diffusing gases. So as I said, the diffusing capacity will also depend upon the solubility of the diffusing gases. So if a gas is more soluble, it diffuses faster, across the membrane. So as we know, the more is the solubility of a gas, the more faster it will diffuse. Solubility at a particular pressure difference of at a particular pressure difference, so let's say if we take the pressure difference to be the same, not 1 millimeter. If we take 1 millimeter, that will be the actual comparison. But if we take any pressure difference and keep it constant, if we keep it constant, then we will see that the diffusion of carbon dioxide is 20 times faster than oxygen, and at the same pressure difference, the diffusion of oxygen is approximately 2 times faster than that of nitrogen. Why? Because the diffusing capacity depends upon the solubility of the diffusing gases. So carbon dioxide is more diffusible than oxygen, and oxygen in turn is more diffusible than nitrogen at the same pressure difference. Okay, so diffusion of gases primarily depends upon the solubility of gases. Okay. Alright people, so we will now discuss about what happens during the respiratory exchange. So just a quick thing out here, we have seen that the difference in partial pressures plays a very important and significant role in determining the exchange of gases. So during the exchange of gases across the respiratory membrane, we have seen that the respiratory membrane is made up of 3, and it's a very thin membrane, allowing the comfortable exchange of gases. The thinner it is, the better will be the diffusion. So the diffusion of gases takes place from higher partial pressure to lower partial pressure. So the gases will move from the side which has higher partial pressure to the side which has lower partial pressure. So the blood that reaches the alveolus, it is also known as the venous blood, or basically the poisonous blood. Why it is not poisonous? It's just that the percentage of oxygen is less and the percentage of carbon dioxide is more. Has lower partial pressure of oxygen and higher partial pressure of carbon dioxide than the alveolar air, obviously. Okay, so the oxygen diffuses into the blood and carbon dioxide out of the blood. So the oxygen will diffuse into the blood and carbon dioxide will diffuse out of the blood into the alveolus. So this will go into the alveolus. By the time blood leaves the alveolus, that is arterial blood, it has almost the same partial pressure of O2 and partial pressure of carbon dioxide as the alveolar air. So it's very important. We will look into the figures as to how much the difference is. It has lower partial pressure of O2 and higher partial pressure of carbon dioxide. But due to this, what will happen is the carbon dioxide, which is at a higher partial pressure, will diffuse into the alveolar sac, and the oxygen, which is comparatively higher pressure in the alveolar sac, will diffuse into the blood. So the deoxygenated blood changes into the oxygenated blood. So this is just a quick diagram of how the exchange takes place. So as we have seen, there are two kinds of respiration. One is the external respiration, which is exchange of gases between the alveoli and the air, and one is the internal respiration, which takes place in the individual tissues and cells. Okay, so here we have the tissue. Let's say these are some tissue. So this tissue level respiration is known as internal respiration. Okay, now let's say this is the heart. This is basically the heart. The blood is going from the heart into the lungs and then again coming back to the heart and then again going into the lungs. So we will see how this impacts. So let's say this is the alveolus, one alveolus out here. So at the lung level, what happens is the pulmonary exchange or respiration takes place. Here the tissue level respiration takes place, and here the pulmonary exchange or pulmonary or external respiration takes place. Now look at this. So partial pressure of oxygen and partial pressure of carbon dioxide in this deoxygenated blood. Where is this deoxygenated blood coming from? Obviously from the tissues. So what happens is the tissues will use maximum amount of oxygen and release the carbon dioxide into the blood. So this will have a higher partial pressure of carbon dioxide and lesser of oxygen. It's not that the blood will be completely free of oxygen or there will be no oxygenated at all. The term deoxygenated means that the percentage of oxygen or the partial pressure of oxygen is far less than the inhaled air. Okay, so this is basically deoxygenated blood, which will have a partial pressure of carbon dioxide to a tune of 46 to 48 millimeter of Hg, and the partial pressure of oxygen to a tune of 40 millimeter of Hg approximately. Okay, this oxygenated deoxygenated blood comes in here, and we see that the membrane is too thin and it will allow the diffusion of gases. The principal property for diffusion of gases is the difference in the partial pressure. So we have the partial pressure of air, the alveolar air, more than the partial pressure of oxygen, that is the deoxygenated blood. I'm not sure whether this is visible. So we have partial pressure of oxygen in the alveolar air more than the partial pressure of oxygen in the deoxygenated blood. So partial pressure of alveolar air is more than the partial pressure of deoxygenated blood. Okay, so what will happen is the diffusion will happen from the alveolar sac into the blood. So oxygen will enter, and this will increase the oxygen partial pressure to approximately 95 to 96. So you see this difference. The partial pressure of oxygen in the deoxygenated blood was just 40 millimeter of Hg, and after the exchange that took place, it increased to 90 to 96 millimeter of Hg. Partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the alveolar air is lesser than the partial pressure of carbon dioxide in the deoxygenated blood. So what will happen is the carbon dioxide from the deoxygenated blood will move on. Partial pressure, so carbon dioxide will move on from the deoxygenated blood into the alveolar sac. So what happens is, see here it is approximately what? 40 millimeter of 46 to 48 millimeter of Hg, the carbon dioxide, and this is 40. So this will reduce down to approximately 40, because the difference is not that great as it is in the case of oxygen. So it finally comes to 40 to 42 millimeters. So now this deoxygenated blood will have approximately 95 to 96 millimeter of partial pressure of O2 and partial pressure of CO2 on the oxygenated blood. This is basically oxygenated blood. This is the deoxygenated blood. In the oxygenated blood, it will be approximately 40 to 42 millimeters. So the percentage or partial pressure of carbon dioxide has reduced by a certain amount, and there is a huge jump in the partial pressure of oxygen in the oxygenated blood. And all this has happened just because there is a partial pressure difference that has been created. Okay, so deoxygenated blood actually gets converted into oxygenated blood here. It moves into the heart, and this moves into the heart through the pulmonary veins, and then it enters the left atrium of the heart. From the left atrium it passes on to the left ventricle, and then the left ventricle, when it contracts, it pushes into the aorta, and from the aorta it is distributed to the various organs in the human body. Okay, now what happens in the tissue level? At the tissue level, the partial pressure of oxygen becomes very less. It depends upon the activity of the tissue. It depends upon what type of cellular activity takes place in the tissue. The higher is the cellular activity, the more the oxygen will be used. So at tissue level, the partial pressure of oxygen will decrease. It will become to approximately 20 millimeter, and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide will increase. That will increase to a tune of 58 milliliter. So what will happen is that this deoxygenated blood will move to the right atrium. This deoxygenated blood, here the deoxygenated blood actually moves to the right atrium. This deoxygenated blood from the tissues is collected and poured through the superior and inferior vena cavas. So we have two vena cavas which are basically pouring the blood into the heart. So from the superior and inferior vena cava, the blood which is deoxygenated is poured into the heart. From the heart, because we only have one pumping organ, that is the heart. So whether it is pumping oxygenated blood to the various organs and tissues of the body, or whether it is pumping deoxygenated blood to the lungs for the exchange to take place, heart is the only common center. Okay, so when this superior and inferior vena cava carries the blood, at tissue level the oxygen drops. The oxygen level drops to approximately 20 millimeter of Hg, and the carbon dioxide level increases to approximately 58 millimeter of Hg. So this deoxygenated blood goes to the right atrium. This deoxygenated blood is poured to the right atrium. From the right atrium, it goes into the right ventricle, and when the right ventricle contracts, it is pushed into the lungs. Okay, so this is how the blood travels, and this is how, due to pressure difference, the exchange of gases between the respiratory between the alveolar sacs and the blood actually takes place. So we have two types of respirations, internal and external, and this is how the entire cycle basically takes place and breathing happens.